So we want to underwrite the deal. What that means is understand how much the renovation costs are going to be. What's our purchase price going to be? What are the financing costs going to be? Are we using private money lending or hard money lending? We want to understand all the numbers as much as you can. Understand this is still an estimate, right? And the goal isn't to be perfect here. There's no perfect estimate, but to be as close as we can be so that you can make a decision whether you want to buy this deal. So now we find the deal. Let's talk about analyzing a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll say in the analyzing, there's a lot of ways to do it, and there's a lot of other experts that can help you do it.
Yeah.
Some people, like to use an appraiser, which is a traditional way of doing it. Some people always like to just let an agent tell them after repair value, especially if they're the expert in that neighborhood. We always rely on comparables and using the rehab deal calculator. But one thing I will always say, one of my guiding principles when analyzing a home for sale is I never analyze a home, no matter how much bigger or better it is, in the highest sale in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
For me, that is too risky. Yeah. I try to use the highest sale in the neighborhood as my ceiling.
Yeah.
Maybe if that house sold for top dollar, I can get that top dollar, but I don't try to estimate that I'll get a lot more, because especially if that above that last sale is where all your profit is.
Yeah, because once we start guessing how much above the highest price sale in the house, like our ARV will be, the after repair value, now you're just speculating. And what we don't want to do here is speculate.
Yeah.
We don't want to assume the market's going to keep going up. That's where we see, we've been doing this for a long time. So we've seen a lot of fix and flip companies lose their shirts and go under because they were never conservative. They were the companies that would find the highest price sale in the area and say, hey, mine's going to sell 25, 50K above that. And so we don't advise that. We want you to be conservative with all these numbers, and some good principles on determining the ARV. We want to use past historical sales, past historical properties, and compare apples to apples. So if we're dealing with a 3-bed, 2-bath property as our subject property, the distressed one that we got under contract, and it's 1,200 square feet, we want to find other 3-bed, 2-bath houses in the same area that are 1,200 square feet. You hit a gold mine if you can find model matches, like the exact same property. That's not always the case. Sometimes it is. But you want to find comparable properties that have been sold, renovated, typically within the last 6 months. And the closer to actual today, the better. If you can find comps within 3 months. But those are going to dictate the value of your property, what it can sell at once it's renovated. That's what I've been doing for 10 years, and that's my favorite way to do it. It's been pretty accurate.
Yeah, and I can say, being a very smart 2.8 GPA student, that the reason fix and flipping does so well and so many people can do it is because it's literally a formula that you follow. It's not a speculation. We're teaching you to analyze and use actual comparable sales to figure out closely what is the home going to sell for. Like you said, you will normally not find a model match, but a lot of homes will be close enough to where you can understand that the home will sell within a range of that home. Yeah. And that's why so many people fix and flip homes, because it's not a speculation. It's not that risky if you follow our formula.
Yeah, it's not rocket science. It's some basic math. And you just got to stick to some tried and true principles in order to get it done. So for the ARV, the after repair value, we want to use past historical sales properties. The more the better. Yeah. Typically we want to stay within half a mile radius. Yep. We want to stay within the same neighborhood, same zip codes if possible. We don't want to be pulling comparables from 2 cities over that are completely unrelated. If our house is in a suburban neighborhood with neighbors on both sides, we want to find other comparable properties in a suburban neighborhood or the same neighborhood with houses on both sides. You don't want to go find a house on a farm with an acre of land and say, hey, this suburban house is going to sell with this acre of land, this house with an acre of land sold for. So just that's what we mean by apples to apples.
Yeah, and the way I've actually been underwriting and analyzing all of our deals is using the rehab deal calculator that we and our students use. And it gives you a pretty good idea of how close you're going to be to that sale price if you use, like you're saying, very similar homes in a similar neighborhood.
And so that deal calculator, we've been using it for 10 plus years. We use it to underwrite every single deal, get our numbers down to the dollar, the cent. That way we feel confident taking action on the deal. And let's talk about the other 2 big numbers. Next one being the repair costs. Yep. So we have to analyze for the repair costs. My favorite way to analyze for repair costs, once you get comfortable with your area, is a dollar per square foot rule. Yep. If we're dealing with cosmetic renovations, yep. So we're not adding square footage to a property. We're not necessarily fixing cracked slabs. We're fixing the carpets, the kitchen, the bathrooms, painting exterior, interior. Those are my favorite type of rehabs because they're quick and easy, or easier than harder projects or more lengthy projects. But also, if it's your first flip, we recommend you do a rehab that is mainly cosmetic. Don't bite off more than you can chew. And typically we see these renovations, cosmetic renovations, what, 30 to 50,000, kind of in that range.
Yeah, and look, honestly, you know, as sexy as TV makes fix and flipping, if you find a good deal, you can literally just clean it up, throw on a coat of paint, and put it right for sale. To me, that's a renovation. And if you can make anywhere near as much as spending 4 to 6 months, that's probably a better strategy. So renovation, like you said, can vary from completely gutting a house down to the studs, adding a second floor, adding garages, to just cleaning and throwing a coat of paint.
Yeah, and this is where people can get lost in the sauce on the renovations. Oh my gosh, how much does an HVAC system cost? How much does this tile flooring cost? They get stuck in paralysis by analysis because they're trying to figure out, what does every single little thing cost? And this is why I like the dollar per square foot rule. And typically, you know, in San Diego, when we work on rehabs, it's ranged from $30 to $35, $40 per square foot of the property.
Yeah.
And now when we go to higher price points, that dollar per square foot number increases. But it's a really quick and easy strategy when you're dealing with a cosmetic renovation to quickly analyze your repair numbers. I'm talking about in 10, 15 seconds.
Absolutely.
Then you can put something under contract right away. You know, most people get caught up and I've seen people spend days, weeks trying to analyze repairs on a property, and then they're wondering why they don't get any deals under contract. Right. They can't underwrite it quickly.
Yeah, and look, sometimes you might have to do that if it's a massive project.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you don't have to do a huge renovation to get a nice profit. And unfortunately, you know, a small renovation is not sexy enough to be on TV.
No.
Most of my biggest profit deals are where I did the least amount of work, right? Because it's when you analyze and choose which option to do, whether it's the wholesale, which is just clean it up and sell it, which is a small renovation, or a big renovation, I also consider time, right? If I have a lot of projects and I can make a quick $20,000, $30,000, or I have to renovate for 6 months to make 40 or 50, is it worth giving up $20,000 to make that kind of money in just 30 days?
Yeah.
Probably. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to analyze and make decisions on how much work you should do to fix and flip a house.
Now that we have the ARV, we have the repair costs. It's kind of like a waterfall. Like I like to put the ARV at the top.
Absolutely.
Now we have the repair costs. And then we have our purchase price. So when you're finding the deal, you're negotiating, you're able to do a lot with those three numbers, because now if you understand your purchase price, so let's say you've used the MLS offer system, you negotiated with the agent, you got it under contract. Now if you've talked to hard money lenders, private money lenders, you can calculate your interest rates. You know, you can actually Google how much does insurance cost for a house in my particular area, and roughly figure out the rough costs and how much profit you can make from this deal and if it's worthy to take down.
Yeah, and also just a quick tip, you know, we can use the 10% rule for closing costs. When you add a realtor commission, taxes for the time that you've held the property, utilities, insurance, that comes out to be about another 10% you take away from that top number as a quick guide to how much you'll end up with profit.
You know, one of the best sayings in real estate is you make your money when you buy.
Correct.
Right? So that's what we're doing.
100%.
We're making sure we make our money when we buy, and we're not hoping that the market goes up. There's no hope here. We're trying to eliminate hope. You know, we're trying to have as much certainty as possible and eliminate uncertainty here, so that you're not guessing you're going to make money once you buy this deal. That's any deal that I felt like that, where like, oh man, I hope that, you know, I hope that the market increases and, you know, this profit turns from 20 to 40,000. It stirred me into trouble, because when you do a renovation, things come up and typically don't go to plan exactly. And so one deal I had when it was 20,000 of profit, I hoped that it would reach 40,000 of profit for the sale. Guess what? It needed a new HVAC, which we overlooked. You know, that happened. And then it sold $15,000 less than where we thought it was going to sell at. And it was a break-even deal that took 6 months.
Wow.
And wasn't fun. And I shouldn't have even done that deal from the analysis. But that's why you want to be conservative. If I wasn't conservative, I should have just wholesaled that deal, made $5,000 or $10,000, and not have 6 months of break-even. And I got a few extra gray hairs because of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're getting started, one of the simplest rules of thumb I'll say is that you should make $1 in profit for every dollar of renovation you spend. Yeah. That usually gives you enough contingency in case things go wrong, and things don't even have to go wrong for that number to go down, right? You might list a house and get an offer for the exact price that you thought, but that buyer needs closing cost help, right? That's $5,000, $6,000 gone like this. The deal might take just an extra 2 months. That's another $3,000, $4,000, $10,000 in interest gone. All right, so those numbers get eaten up quickly. That's why we're saying you should always have at least a minimum of $1 per square foot. If you're going to spend 30, you should make at least 30 when you're first getting started.
Yeah, and that's what I feel anyone should aim for starting out. You spend 30, try and make 30. You spend 40, try and make 40. You spend 50, try and make 50. As you can see, the number goes up on the net. This is net profit. Let's talk about that. This is not gross profit. This is not before you pay back your investors, your hard money lenders. This is net profit that you want to make per deal. And you're going to be pretty much in the black if you do this, the majority of the time.
The higher the number of the renovation, the more risk there is.
Yes.
Even if it's the same amount of renovation, right? Painting a 3,000 square foot house versus painting a 1,500 square foot house, right? If you lose that painter and you need to bring another painter in, it's going to be that much more expensive to have another contractor come in and try to help you out. So the more expensive and larger scope of work, the more your profit should be, right? Because a bigger house will just have, even if it's similar issues to a smaller house, those issues just cost more to repair. All right, not even if you or your contractor screwed up. Let's say you install an HVAC system in a big house, all right? Everything went well, it got installed, but now your HVAC gets stolen, right? To replace it is very expensive, way more in a bigger house than a smaller house. That's why your profit margin has to be bigger on bigger, more expensive rehabs, because a lot of things can go wrong and you want to have enough cushion. And that's what you want to explain to wholesalers, realtors, and anyone you work with. It's not that you just want to make more money, it's the risk is higher.
Yeah, every single, the bigger the renovation, the more time, the more walls to open up, the more things that you can find, the more variables. So 100%. So we're not trying to do $1 million house flip or $1 million purchase and make $30,000. You don't want to do that. We're talking about probably about houses we can buy for $500,000, $400,000, around there. That's where 30, 40, 50,000 is acceptable. But even once the purchase price goes higher, bigger renovations, you want that larger profit to mitigate that risk.
Yeah, and also on those bigger houses or more expensive houses, right, when you do a price reduction, right, on a cheaper house, a price reduction, like a $250,000 house as an example. If I list a house for $250 and it's not moving, I'll maybe drop it to $239. But if I list a house for $550 and I drop it, I'm dropping it to $525, $25,000. That's another reason why you want that profit margin higher.
Be on the lookout for the next video in this series. And if you want to build a hyper-profitable wholesaling and flipping business, then check out my full in-depth training at realestateskills.com/watch. And I'll put the link in the description. I'll see you there, and happy flipping.